The next parts we're going to make are the X-axis and the extruder parts. They're kind of convoluted, got a lot of small parts, so I want to show them to you finished first to give you an idea of what it should look like. We have one pulley that has kind of a hexagon up inside there, and then two that are just rounded with no hexagon shape. That's one end. The other end is this, and we're going to show you how to put it together. So we start out, this is our X-axis motor. That will go on the X-axis, which makes the trolley go left and right and moves the print head left and right. This other motor is our extruder motor, and you see that we have some random gears and springs. This thing pivots. This is where our filament will come out and go up to the printer. The filament goes in on this side through that little tiny hole between these two gears and then comes out of this side. So we need to build this frame. We also have this brass threaded part that is what allows the Z-axis to cause the whole thing to go up and down. And so that has a little special treatment that we'll have to do a little bit later. But this is what we're building next. We also have a QR code sticker that I've taken off because there's bolts underneath there, and you'll see how that goes in a minute. And I stuck it to the bag of your parts so that you can still use it and scan it if you want to. The next one we're going to do is the extruder X-axis. Now your bag is going to have a lot more parts than just this one. Your screw parts are going to be a lot more than just these, but I've gone ahead and dug these out already so that we can show you that we need this plate. We need 3 long screws, one washer that'll go on that long screw. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that on right now. We need 2 spacers, and we need 1 adjustable spacer, and you'll notice that that's not centered. Okay, the material sticker here, skinnier there. It's also hexagon, where these are not. They're just smooth. So I need 2 smooth spacers and 1 hexagon spacer. The reason we use a hexagon spacer is because it's a cam lock. It allows us to adjust, usually to tighten or loosen something. In this case, it's going to help us loosen or tighten these wheels next to the aluminum framing. We also have, so we have our 3 spacers, we have 3 lock nuts, and 3 V-groove pulleys that all have bearings in them. Now the bearings are kind of pressed in. You can change these bearings if one goes bad, but they hardly ever do. So you'll need 3 of those V-groove pulleys. So this is what we need. We'll also need our Allen wrenches and our wrench. And we'll go ahead and put this together now. Now, it is a good idea before you start to refer to any pictures that you've taken. I took a picture of this assembly before we dismantled it. I also have another printer in the room that I can look at to reference if I need to, so that I can get the pulleys in the right places. I know that this plate needs to go that direction because this top edge lines up with the top frame piece on our X-axis. So I'm going to hold it like that. I'm going to lay it down on the table just in front of me the way I want to see it. I'm going to take one of the V-groove pulleys. I'm going to take one of the bolts without the washer. We're going to connect those together. And I'll take one of the smooth spacers and put over the top of the bolt. Now while I hold that all together, I'm going to take that assembly and I'm going to put this assembly in the bottom hole and kind of hold it. Actually, I'm going the wrong way. I got to go this way. Hold it in the hole, and then I put a lock nut on. I get one started. Now I'm just going to start all these pulleys before I tighten any of them. So at that point, that's what it looks like. You need to make sure yours is facing the same direction. If you put the pulleys on the back like I did, then it's going to flip it over when you assemble it, and this will be sticking out in space and it won't be correct. So we're going to go ahead and create another one of those pulley systems. Bolt, pulley, or V-groove pulley. We're going to take our other smooth spacer, put on that side, poke it through the same direction as our other one, so they're both on the same side. Don't put it on backwards like this, or you'll have other problems you'll have to fix later. So flip it around, have them both coming through the plate the same direction. Get our V nut or our lock nut and get it started on the end of that. Alright, that leaves our adjustable. So I'm going to take my washer, put on the head of the screw first, then our V pulley. And then you'll notice that on this, one end sticks up further than the other. Okay, in other words, it's going to go into the plate deeper with that side than this side. So I'm going to put the side that isn't as deep against the pulley. So it looks like that. Okay, bolt, washer, V-groove pulley, adjustable spacer, hex spacer, with the thick part sticking up. Now on this end of the pulley we have two holes. We want that big pulley thing to go inside the big hole. So we'll go ahead and plug that in, hold that together, and then go ahead and put a nut on that end, just like we did the other. Alright, at this point, they're all in the right place, they're all in the right locations. So I like to turn this so that I can put my Allen wrench right in the end of it, and my small end of my open end wrench I put around the nut and kind of hold my thumb over the end of the nut. It's kind of a test of patience here. Sometimes if you flip your wrench over so it's fitting flat against, it's easier. Alright, then I'm going to go ahead and tighten that up nice and snug. Once you get it, for now, you can go ahead and kind of snug that down. Later we'll loosen this one up again and adjust it so that it tightens against our frame, our aluminum frame better. But for now, that assembly, which is the right side of our x-axis, is now assembled. Now we'll go ahead and show you how to do the other one, which will take some time. So this is more of the mess I was talking about. You're going to have extruder x-axis screws, few bigger parts, springs, get all kinds of pulleys and wheels, spacers. That's the kit that we're going to use to put all these parts together. We've got these great big parts. I'm just going to dump this bag out carefully. And you'll kind of see what I'm talking about here. We have an X-axis motor. We have the extruder motor. I set those aside for a minute. We have some frame pieces. We have that plastic cover. We got a different plastic cover, and then our main frame piece. That's the one we're going to start with. Now, everything that goes on here is kind of a pain to put on, so just be patient. Understand things are going to go slower. The easiest thing to put on first is this little brass adjuster for the Z-axis screw. The reason it's easier now is without the motors and other parts in the way, we can get in there and hold things easier. So first thing I need to do is find the parts I need to get to put in there. So I'm going to carefully dump my bag. There's a lot of really small parts here, so we don't want to lose any of those. Then I'm going to spread them out a little. You see I have this little electrical switch. This is one of our stop switches. It is electronic piece. We can fry it, so we want to just stick it back in the bag for now. In fact, maybe we'll do that first. We'll get the plastic cover here, and we'll put that in. So I'm going to take our little stop switch, going to flip it upside down. It's going to sit inside this plastic case right there like that, so that it sticks out a little past the case. That way when the head hits it, it'll tell the computer it's time to stop. It's easiest if I take these two screws and get them started in there a little bit. Set it down on top of the pillars in there that they screw into, and then use my Phillips screwdriver to go ahead and get them both started. And I'm kind of holding down on the switch as I go here, so if I turn that until it gets snug, and then I'll turn the other one until it gets snug, and that's all I want is snug. I don't want to turn too tight or I'll strip out the plastic those screws go into. So that gives us the little stop cover, and we can set that aside now. Now we'll go back to the frame. So like I told you before, it's easier to put this brass part in, so we'll get that out of our pile of parts before we put anything else on. That is held on with these little tiny lock washers. There should be 4 of them. So dig through your pile and see if you can find all 4. There's the other one hiding on top of my pulley. I'm going to sort out my parts kind of as I go here, just like we did before, so that we have everything that's similar next to each other. Now you don't have to do this all right this second, but you could if you want to. So I'm kind of just putting all my spacers next to each other, all the nuts next to each other, the longer bolts next to each other, the random stuff that I don't know where they go next to each other, and then some bolts. Now this has 2 fine threaded bolts that go through and hold it on. I have 4 of those, but I know I need at least 2, and they're the only size that'll work. So I'm just going to take 2 of those that are the same length, and you can put those next to each other and make sure they are. Alright, then I'm going to put one of these little tiny lock washers on the top of it so that it slides down next to the head of this bolt, the screw. Alright, then I'm going to hold this. This is where it gets tricky. This is why you want to do it while it's apart. You'll notice that we have a thick part and a piece that sticks way up and a piece that sticks part way down. So the part that sticks way up goes up. All right, and the idea is we're going to put that on the bottom of our plate. And then we're going to put a screw through, but we have to put one of these other lock washers on. So if we take the screws first and put one through with the lock washer on it, okay, this will try your patience. Alright, so you see, you got that little lock washer sticking on that bolt. I set that down flat so it doesn't come loose. And I'm going to do the same on the top bolt. I'm poking it through, holding the other one in while I put the lock washer on that one. All right, then I could take my threaded brass piece, and I can stick that. Uh-oh, see, I already messed it up. Put the lock washer, oh, now the top one came off. So you see, it's going to take you a little trial and error here. So I think what we'll do is flip that upside down a little. I'm going to get my screwdriver. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Get my Phillips screwdriver. Oops. And get one of those started. Oops, not a Phillips. Sorry. It's one of my smaller Allen wrenches. Okay, I think I'm just going to let the bottom one go for a second while I get the top one started. Try to turn to where you can see what I'm doing here. Now, you have to have these lock washers in between like that. There we go. Except I've got it upside down, don't I? Alright, let's try it again. Flip it around so the big part. Okay, get a couple of threads started. And then I'll go ahead and put my... Oh, don't lose that. These things will disappear on this ground. So I've started one. Now I've got to get the bottom one lined up. Oops. Lock washer, put it through the hole, put the other lock washer on. Okay, then I'm going to carefully turn that down and line it up so that I can get my wrench on there again and get it started a few turns. Then I want to double check and make sure there's a lock washer in between there on both sides. It looks like we're good. I'm going to go ahead and push that up through the hole the rest of the way. Use my wrench and snug that down lightly. Now, the reason is we have to use this to adjust the tension on our threaded shaft later. So we don't want them super tight, but we just want to get them snug so it stays in place. All right. So now you know why we put that in first. So before we assemble our motor to our plate, we need to add our little drive pulley. This is the gear that actually the filament goes through. It helps drive the filament into the head as it's printing. So we're going to add that now because it's a lot easier while we have access. But we have to get that spacing right. You'll see we have kind of a bump right here. And we want the two little Allen screw heads. We want to make sure those are loose. So use your smallest Allen wrench. We want to line it up with the flat part of our shaft, and then we're going to use our screwdriver again and push down until our screwdriver is tight against the bottom of the gear, and then we make sure that our Allen screw, at least one of them, is even with the flat part of the shaft. And then we'll go ahead and snug that Allen screw in. And that'll be the height we want for everything to line up. Once you have the flat shaft tightened, we're going to go ahead and come over to this other one that goes against the round shaft, and we'll snug it up as well. So you see that gives us about 1/4 of an inch space between the bottom of the gear and the top, this part, not this part, the top of that extrusion on the motor. Now we can go ahead and take our motor and we're going to place it in our frame with the power connector pointing toward the brass screw that we put on earlier. Now I'm going to try to juggle this and show you how to do the rest. We want to take our filament guide. We'll put that on top. We want the big brass opening opposite the brass screw that we already put in. So I'll go ahead and line that up. Now you'll notice on this that we have a tapered head. These screw holes just drilled in, but on this one it's a tapered head. So we want to kind of get that one started first. So I'll get it lined up here on the motor, lined up with that tapered head screw, and then we need to find the screw with the tapered head and put it in. So this is going to be a bit of a juggle here for a second. Then I'll take a wrench, and get it lined up with the screw underneath, and just screw that in a few threads. Now we don't want to go tight yet because nothing else is lined up, but that way it'll kind of hold it while we get things lined up. And I'm going to go down until it's just barely snug and then back it off so we can turn things. But you see we have this brass screw for the Z-axis, and on the opposite side we have the brass opening, and on the back we have the connector for the electrical, and it's pointing toward the brass Z-axis. Now we're going to take our arm, and we showed you earlier that, well, we're going to take our long silver screw, our little black adapter part, and our arm, put those together, drop them on the floor, try it again. I grab those two, put it into our tension arm, and then that will go into this hole. We'll go ahead and kind of just wiggle things and get it started. Okay, we're not going tight. Then we take our other two small screws and put on the front and get them started. Alright, once they're all started like that, we can go ahead and snug them all down nice and tight. Don't want to break the plastic, so just go about a quarter of a turn past where it hits the plastic. Okay, we're going to tighten our first one again, and the reason that is a taper-headed screw is because this arm has to be able to go over it. If we used a regular screw, then the head would be in the way and jam it. Okay, then we'll go ahead and tighten down that last screw just a little. We want it snug but not super tight. This pivot still needs to be able to pivot. Alright, so with everything tightened down good, we kind of look inside there. It looks like the hole for our little gear is about the right height to feed it. We put the filament through this hole. It comes through this gear and goes in between the gold gear and the tapered bearing, not tapered, the groove bearing. And then there's going to be pressure that pushes on this to keep it tight against the gear so it can feed out of this hole later. So now we need to add our spring. So I'll take our little spring. Now there's an adapter that goes on the spring. It's this little silver thing. We're going to just poke that silver thing inside the adapter. Alright, then we're going to poke our spring down inside. Try not to let go or you'll be chasing that adapter. Okay, and then while you hold it in place, take that Allen screw and put it inside the on the outside of that hole and screw that in quite a ways. Okay, that'll help center that little spring adapter. Now when we push that, you can see how the spring moves the pulley. This screw keeps the spring from popping off, and that little adapter we put in there makes it so we can adjust it tighter or looser without the screw falling out. And that'll keep tension on our filament as it goes through. Okay, that is it for our extruder. Now we need to go add our other plate. So this plate is going to go on with the big circle, this big circle, in line with the square part over here. So it'll go on something like that. The first thing we'll do is take one of our big bolts and we're going to poke it through this top hole from the back side. So this is the back, and poke that through the front. Then we'll take one of our smooth spacers, we'll put that on. We'll put one of our V-groove belt pulleys on, another smooth spacer, and then our plate needs to have this flat edge facing toward the bottom of our assembly. So right here's our extruder. We need to have that at the bottom of our assembly. So we're going to put that back on, and we're going to put this round part up onto the bolt. Okay, and then we're going to take a nut and just get it started. We don't want to tighten any of these until we have them ready. Okay, then we'll do the same thing with another one. We're going to take another large bolt, put in through the back with a smooth pull spacer. We'll put a V-groove bearing on with another smooth spacer, and then we're going to put that through a different hole, which I can't seem to figure out. Right there. Okay, and then we will get that one started. So far, this is what we got. Okay, we have this plate with two bolts with the hole on the square side to the left and the square other square edge down. All right, then we're going to take our last big bolt, and that is eventually got to go into this kind of cutaway area on our rail, and that head will fit in that area. So we'll take our big bolt, put it in through the front. We'll use our smooth spacer. That'll go in through there. I got a V pulley bearing right there, and our cam lock. And then we will put our washer and a nut. Now with the nut, if you can't reach in there very well, I got big fingers. We're going to go ahead and put this nut down in there with my needle nose pliers. Maybe. There it goes. Gonna hold that hopefully from moving just enough that I can screw this screw in and get it started. Then I'll go ahead and snug those down again. Help if I had the right wrench. Okay, again, leave that one just barely loose, and then these others will tighten up pretty snug again. Okay, this should be the correct way. We have our bolt head on this side on the adjustable concentric, and then we have the bolt heads on the back with the nuts coming out the front on our two smooth bearing rollers. So once we're at that point, now we're ready to do our motor. So we're going to take our motor and make sure the plastic, white plastic, is facing down, and we will put that in and then kind of set this whole thing just down on the table. You see that the motor doesn't want to stay in there very good, right? So what we'll do next then is kind of hold that. I'm going to put one of our long screws in there. Let's see, we'll do this top one for a minute. And those long screws that go through our little plastic stop switch cover are the ones that also hold that motor in place. So I'm going to just put that on with the switch facing toward that rounded nose and get our motor lined up, get an Allen wrench that fits that. I think that's this one. And we'll just get it started. You might have to turn your motor a little or lift it or something to get it started in there. Once that one gets started, we can turn and put one of our other long bolts in, and we'll turn our motor just a little bit if we need to get that hole to line up. And we'll start that one in. Then we'll get another one. I'm not tightening any of these all the way down yet. I'll put both of the next two screws in, and we'll get those started in our motor as well before we tighten any of them. I'm just getting them all started. You want to make sure they start straight. You see that's still pretty loose, but it is now ready to snug down once we have all four of them. So we'll go ahead and snug that down on all four bolts. Alright, that secures our motor in with the switch pointing down. These four long bolts that hold the plastic end stop switch in place are the end stop faces to the right when we're holding it like this. We have our extruder parts on, so at this point that part of our X assembly is completed. So that's what it looks like now from the front, and this is what it looks like in the back. Okay, motor with the connector down, extruder motor. We have on the front again our hot end and X trolley assembly. That should be nice and snug. This bracket goes down because our Z-stop switch hits that to tell it where it is. And if you have the little sticker still on your bag, which I do somewhere, but I can't find it right now, you can stick that back over the surface to cover those bolts.